All right. Tonight, we have a very special keynote speaker for you. When our next guest deployed to Vietnam in March of 1969 at the young age of 23. Then, Private First Class James C. McCloughan was assigned as a combat medic with Company C, 3rd Battalion, 21st Infantry Regiment, 126th Light Infantry, the Americal Division. We got some fans there. How about that? He wasn't even in country for a full month before his character and moxie were tested. On the morning of May 13th, Charlie Company came under fire in an area near Tam Ky and New Yon Hill. During the assault, 2 American helicopters were shot down, one of which crashed roughly 100 meters from the company's position. The fierce enemy fire made landing a rescue helicopter impossible, so a squad was sent out in order to rescue the pilot and crew and bring them to safety. The squad reached the perimeter around the crash site, and with complete disregard for his life, McCloughan ran 100 meters in an open field through heavy fire to rescue a comrade, too injured to move, and carried him to safety. Later that day, 2nd Platoon was ambushed by a large North Vietnamese Army force and sustained heavy casualties. Without hesitation, McCloughan led 2 Americans into the safety of a trench while being wounded by shrapnel from a rocket-propelled grenade. He then ignored a direct order to stay back and braved an enemy assault while moving into the kill zone on 4 more occasions to extract wounded comrades. He treated the injured, prepared the evacuation, and though bleeding heavily from shrapnel wounds, refused evacuation to safety to remain at the battle site with his fellow soldiers who were heavily outnumbered. Time and again, he ran headfirst into crossfire to extract wounded soldiers while also fighting the enemy. His courageous actions were instrumental in saving the lives of his fellow soldiers and motivating them to keep fighting. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming life member of VFW Post 667 in South Haven, Michigan, and Medal of Honor recipient, Specialist 5th Class, James C. McCloughan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As Henry VIII said to his second wife, I won't keep you long. The first thing I'd like to do is thank a couple of individuals, but I promise you my list is not as long as Dan's. I'd like to thank Dan, I'd like to thank Al, and I'd like to thank my calendar girl back home. She's undergoing some treatment for cancer, so could not come with me. She's the one that manages me and makes sure that I get to where I belong. And I don't know if you know it or not, she's actually more important than me. She's married to a Medal of Honor recipient. I'd like to congratulate all of you on 126 years. You know, we're celebrating this year the 250th anniversary of the shots heard around the world back in 1775. My wife and I were up there for the reenactment, and let me tell you, if you think about it, the half of those 250 years you've been in existence. That's pretty cool. I always like to, I was a teacher, and I always like to tell a little story, especially in my first hour. It kind of wakes them up. This one's about a Dear John letter, and those of you that don't know what a Dear John letter is, you probably shouldn't be in the military. John Smith got a letter from Maria. It said, I don't love you anymore. I can't wait for you to come back and finally be with me. And I'm dating someone I think you might know, but I'd like to have my picture back. So he's sitting there sulking, and his drill sergeant comes up to him and says, what's going on? He told him the story. He said, you got that picture? Yeah, and he gave it to him, went back to sulking. And this very intelligent drill sergeant went around to the other men and asked if they had any pictures of their significant others, their girlfriend, fiance, or wife. And they did. And he sat down and wrote a letter that Maria thinks is coming from John. Wrote the letter, put the pictures in, and sent it off. And here's what it said. Dear Maria, I'm sorry that you don't love me anymore because I still love you. And I'm really mad that you might be dating somebody that I know. However, I do understand why you might want your picture back. However, I can't remember which one you are, so would you take your picture and send the rest of them back? You know that there's 341 some thousand or million people, in the United States of America, and approximately 45 million of those throughout the history have worn the uniform of the United States of America. There are only 18 million veterans alive in the United States of America today. 30% of them are living with a disability. Veterans are dying at 1,700 per day, 22 of them taking their own life and 24 of them by drugs. I'd like you to know that the Purple Heart and the Medal of Honor are, how many out here have the Purple Heart? Raise your hand. Look on the back, your name is supposed to be on the back. Those are the only two medals that are given with your name on the medal. But of course, the Marines use the Medal of Honor for the Navy, and so do the Coast Guards. There's only one Coast Guard individual that has the Medal of Honor. We, in the United States Army, use the Army, and then in 1956, I think it was, that the Medal of Honor for the Air Force came out. Congress, sometimes you'll hear it called the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's only because Congress must give the President permission to award the Medal of Honor. To meet, you're a little bit ahead of the game here tonight, but to meet a Medal of Honor, the proportion is, to be able to meet a Medal of Honor recipient is 1 in 5,740,600 and something. So tonight, you have a special night because, Mike, where are you? Mike Rose, would you please stand up? All right, Mike. You have two of us here, and actually Mike and I received the medal pretty close together 48 years after my action. There are only 61 of us alive. Mary Walker is the only female that received the Medal of Honor, and they actually took it away from her because she was a doctor's assistant and she wasn't in the military. That's one of the stipulations, that you have to be in the military. She never took it off. Jimmy Carter gave it back many years after she died in 1977. So that's a little bit about the medal that I wear around my neck. I've been a lot of places since I received this, and as a matter of fact, my life has been filled with more blessings than I deserve. I've been on championship teams. I've won a couple of wrestling championships at the college level. I coached and produced all-league, all-state, and all-American athletes, 135 teams I coached throughout my career in football, wrestling, baseball, and American Legion baseball. And I even had several that made the professional ranks. I've been in the president's office, of course, my wife and I. I've been on stage with Lee Greenwood. I've been to all kinds of professional facilities, sporting facilities to sing the national anthem. And I've also been to the national rodeo finals twice, and I got these big old, belt buckle that for singing the national anthem. That sucker's never going around my waist. I know it. I couldn't even fit it around there. I've been places that many of us may not be able to go. I know I would not have been had I not received the medal. I've been across this great nation, and I've spoken in a lot of schools. I've raised money for several organizations, many organizations. And I even got to speak at the 3rd of the 21st Battalion, a banquet before they deployed to Kuwait, and I spoke at the 196th Brigade in Chicago, actually Lombard, a few years back. However, I want you all to know that being in this place with you, with all of the patriots in this room, I feel as if I would not want to be anyplace else but here tonight. I am so grateful for you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture of what it was like on that night and day of the 13th through the 15th. First of all, this medal that I have around my neck does not belong to me. It belongs to 89 men, 89 souls who were taken into an area which we did not know how many enemy soldiers were in, and we didn't know what kind of firepower they had. It's about a group of individuals, some of them were still boys, who either were drafted or volunteered to serve their country. We came from every part of this great nation. We took our basic and advanced individual training and ended up family in a place far different from the hometowns that we grew up in. We started out loyal to the country and the United States Army, but soon discovered that getting as many of us out and back alive as we could would be our main mission. We came to be friends, then we became brothers, and soon blood brothers, closer than our own brothers back home. Each of us had a part in the survival we were thrown into. By the way, that survival was 2,000 NVA on the Hill and 789 of us. That's almost an impossibility. As their medic, I would have done anything. I did do anything I could to save my brothers, and I knew and was confident that they would do the same for me. I had what I called a positive job in a negative situation. When people were taking lives, I was trying to save them. And I was trained also to make the sick well and the diseased better. My father taught me at a very young age. He said, "Jim, you never do anything halfway. You do it to the best of your ability, and you do it till the job is finished." That's the reason I refused to get on a helicopter, though I was wounded. Number one, I knew the job wasn't over. Number two, I wasn't going to do it halfway. I'd rather be dead in a rice paddy than alive in a hospital and find out that one of my men was dead because Jim McCloughan wasn't there to do his part in the team. Make no mistake, though, when our company commander told the battalion commander that this was a flawed mission, he wasn't bullshitting. As you just heard, no forward observation went in, and this is what we found. It was a flawed mission. But we stuck together. There at New Yon Hill, though our backs were against the wall, we fought for each other's lives. Greater love has no man than to lay down his life for another person. And that's what happened on May 13th through the 15th, 1969, as the men of Charlie Company were willing to give their lives to save each other. In 48 brutal hours, we had 12 killed, another one who was captured, later died, and I worked on anywhere from 40 to 50 myself. When I was the only medic left. Good thing I didn't go. I was the only medic left the second day. You know, what we did was we walked out of there the morning of the 15th as blood brothers. The love we had for each other conquered the enemy. They moved out, and we we're still standing. Let me get something off my chest right now. We didn't lose the Vietnam War, we won it. I hope you're understanding me. A man by the name of Professor Douglas Pike, who's one of the most revered historians of the Vietnam War, is quoted as saying, "We did not lose a battle of any consequence. It was almost an unprecedented performance by our fighting men. The war was a major defeat for the NVA and the VC." Look at the numbers. That's all I've got to say. Look at the numbers. And when we left in 73, remember the fall of Vietnam wasn't until 75, 2 years after we left, we won it. Here's what the Vietnam veteran, and then I'll get to all veterans, but I do want to spend a little time here. The Vietnam veteran stopped communism from being spread from Singapore all the way down to the Philippines, those little countries. Yes, we did. They knew if they stuck their nose in there, they'd have to go up against the fighting American soldier, and nobody likes to do that. Vietnam veterans, welcome home. I'm sorry it has taken so long for everybody to know what you did, but welcome home. Here's some of the reasons that all of the veterans in this room, and it includes the wives and children, a family, they're in the service together. And I know that because I was that way. My dad and my mom were also there with me too. My grandpa actually served in World War I, my dad in World War II, and my Uncle Wayne in the Korean War. I have my grandpa's dog tags in there, round, from World War I, round tags. When it was your turn to serve, you didn't run, you didn't hide. You joined or were drafted and took your place amongst those who chose to fight. Paul Harvey, page 2. You raised your hand and repeated the military oath and confirmed your commitment to the American and its ideals. You signed your family's name on this line. When I hear people say, "I didn't do what you did too." Everyone in this room that's been in the military, there's this little form, and you just put your family name on there, and you give them permission to send you into harm's way. If you don't get sent, fine. But you don't jump on a grenade thinking it's not going off. You jump on a grenade to protect everybody else, and that's what you did. So we're all equal when it comes to that. You worked your butt off in your training so that you could do your job. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's 14 million people that we call wannabes. They claim they were in Vietnam, except they were never in the service. 14 million. Well, who would want to be like, you, because aren't you the baby killers and everything? Who would want to be like? Well, I'll tell you, that's an easy question to answer. Because you're an ABA. You're an American badass. And that's what they want to be like. You became a member of the biggest team that you'll ever serve on. You stopped and got on a plane or on a ship, and you went to wherever it was they sent you. Whether it was Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, wherever they wanted to send you. World War II for a gentleman here. You fought for a group of human beings, in most cases, that you didn't even know. You were defending people who could not defend themselves. That's who the American fighting man is. You were thousands of miles from your home and those that you loved, yet you kept your focus on your mission. Between fightings, you tried to write a letter home. If you were like me, you never told them what was really going on. Yeah, everything was fine. But you didn't want them to worry about you. Vietnam veterans, here is a statistic that I bet you don't know. My father, our dads, in World War II, had direct contact with the enemy in 4 years 40 days. In Vietnam, in 1 year, 240 days. The reason for that, the helicopter took us to the fight just like that. I was in a nice, safe place. 15 minutes later, I was at the bottom of a hill that was outnumbered 30-1. You saw those that you grew to love deeply as family. You saw them get wounded or lose their lives, and often felt helpless when you couldn't save them. You gave, and then you just kept right on giving. You looked on with that 10,000-yard stare as some of your men were put on choppers and planes in flag-draped coffins. Some were wheeled without parts that they were sent there with. Gentleman at my table sacrificed a part of his body for this country. You had medals pinned on your chest. You had ribbons placed on your uniform, but all you really wanted to do was go home. You and the rest of the people that you fought next to, you are the ABAs. You landed in America as you came home. I don't know what you did, but I knelt down and kissed the ground. I was so glad to be back in America. You didn't know at that moment what you had accomplished, but as a teacher and as a coach, I'm telling you that you took the biggest test you will ever take in your life, and you passed it with colors. And you played in the biggest game that you will ever play for in your life, and you won. You came home, you started a career, raised a family, built a home, tried to ignore what some were saying about your war. But though many around you talked about what they thought you had done, have no idea as you had really experienced. So you just chewed it up and spit it out. And know this, they'll forever be ignorant. That's not a bad word. They just don't know. I had one of my machine gunners say to me time and time again, "Doc, they don't know what we did in Vietnam. They just don't know." So one day I said this to him, think about this. "Joe, what is it like to have a baby?" He said, "What?" I said, "What's it like to have a baby?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Of course you don't, Joe. You've never had a baby. And you can't expect people that have not been in your boots to understand what you actually did in the war that you fought in." Just a little touch with the suicidal rate in our country. And I urge all of you, to be very cognizant of people around you. There are signs, you know, when they're not acting the way that they should be acting. And you yourself, when you get to that point maybe where you're thinking about the wrong thing to do, make sure you reach out to a friend. Be a friend and have a friend. That's the best way to do it. And if it has to be a call a day or whatever, it's worth it. Make sure that we take care of each other. You know, as a combat medic, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds I held in my arms. I heard their very last words, and I saw the very last breath of life leave their body. And I think that Ronald Reagan puts it best. He said, those are the real heroes. He said they actually gave up 2 lives. They gave up the life they were living when they were wounded in action, and they gave up the life that they will never, ever get to live. Never got to meet their soulmate and marry, never got to see the birth of a child, never got to coach that child like I did my 2 boys. never got to walk their little girl down the aisle and dance that father-daughter dance after the wedding. And every holiday, every anniversary, every reunion, every family get-together, they're not there. They gave up 2 lives so that we should live our life in honor of them. The American flag has been tossed about. If you think about this every time you see somebody treating the symbol of the United States of America wrongly, that flag accompanies every soldier, sailor, Air Force, Coast Guard with it draped on their coffin. It is folded and handed to the nearest loved one as at the funeral, at the cemetery. And everybody in this room, it's because of you. You are on every wave and wrinkle of an American flag as it flaps in the wind. You have given your all, and no one should abuse that. But it's the United States of America, and everybody claims that it's their right. I myself personally feel it's not. Finally, I want to tell you the biggest lesson that I learned in Vietnam. It was the second day, and somebody yelled, "Medic!" And I hurried out into the kill zone, and I couldn't move him. He had been shot in the abdomen, and even some of the organs were starting to seep. So I had to take pressure bandages quickly, and I'm a sitting duck. That's when I got hit with an AK-47 round in the arm. Kept right on working. Got the pressure bandages on. Had nothing to eat or drink those 2 days, 48 hours. This is why I took my water then and put it on those bandages so that their insides would not dry up and they would die anyway. Finally, I got them on, and I pulled them gently into a trench line that was left there by the French in the French-Vietnam War. And I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to carry this guy out of here? Can't throw him over my shoulder with a fireman's carry like I did everybody else. Finally decided I could cradle him, put those bandages against my chest. This one time, I was glad I was short, get as low to the ground as I could, and race through the crossfire, hope that my men or the enemy would not hit us. Here's the lesson. Out of nowhere, a thought came over me. It had been since I was a little boy that I told my father that I loved him. Fathers didn't do that with their sons. Sons didn't do that with their fathers back in the 50s and the 60s. I knew my dad loved me, and I assumed he knew I loved him too. We acted that way, but we didn't say it. And I had a conversation with the man upstairs. And now you'll know why I was so involved in my teaching and coaching. Lord, if you get me out of this hell on earth so I can look my father in the face one more time and tell him that I love him, I'll be the best coach, I'll be the best teacher, and I'll be the best dad that I can be. I ran to my father in the O'Hare airport, threw my arms around him, and he said he loved me, and I said, "I love you too, Dad." As if we'd been doing that for 24 years of my life so far. It was our greeting and our departure. I taught my children, my grandchildren, my athletes, 72 assistant coaches I had through the years, and I'm giving you an assignment. There must be somebody, not on purpose, but you haven't been able to say those 3 words to. Time has been kind of rushed. So you can do it several ways. If you can look them in the eye and see them and tell them, "I love you." And there's a part B to the assignment. Tell them why you love them. Those 3 words are hollow without giving a verification as to why. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your service. I thank you for all that you continue to do. You're still not done. You're still working at it. And on a final note, I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.